Let's worship God together. How can it be, Jesus, when you gave your life to give us our life? At this time, we would like to bring up our prayer partners, for that they may pray with you, or pray for you. Or you need to pray for someone. Let us stand in the gap, and let us pray for whatever needs you have. If you need healing, restoration, or if you want to give yourself to Christ, we're here to welcome you with open arms. In Jesus' name. face to face. Meet me face to face.
God, we're grateful to you that we can come to this place and freely acknowledge that you are good, that you love us, and that you're faithfully with us in all the things that we face, both good and bad. God, help us to look to you in both the good times and the bad times. Help us to trust you. It's so easy for us to trust ourselves and our props. Help us to trust you first, and to be thankful for the props that you give us. God, we're here to celebrate you. We're here to learn about you. We're here to live more effectively for you, to be the people who represent you in our places where we live, where we work, and where we play. Thank you, God, for this time to fill up, to rejoice, to celebrate together, and encourage one another. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, would you take a moment and greet one another, please?
You grab Al.
You were here on a Sunday morning in fellowship with us in God's house, and everybody knows that Sunday is actually the first day of the week, and there's no better way to start your week than here in the presence of God, right? Amen. So, first things first, our lovely ushers have these wonderful things that we put together for you called our welcome brochures. If you do not have one of these, or if you would like to go through one, they talk about some of the things that we offer here at Capital Christian Center. We'd love to get one of these into your hands. Or maybe you could give them to somebody you know who wants to know about us. My name is Kelly, and I'm part of the leadership team here. And yeah, this is an exciting place to be. I love worshiping here, and the people that we have here are good quality people. Amen to that, right? So the next thing that the ushers are going to hand out is our actual bulletin. Now, everybody should have gotten, oh sorry, if you didn't get one of these at the door, the usher will give you one. I always forget to hand these out at the door. So if you have one of these, I want you to hold it up right now and show me that you have it. All right. So there's a little perforated edge on this very last piece. Okay? So you need to tear that off. Let's do that together too. All right. So most importantly, we are trying to update our database. So in order to do that, we need to get your information in there. So there is a place for you to fill out your information on there. You're very important to us. We do not do anything with your information. We don't sell it. I don't know whatever people do with people's information these days. It's crazy. And there's a few things that you could mark off on here, what you're interested in, all those kind of things about you that we want to know. And then on the back, of course, is our prayer request or comment section. So if you have a prayer request or a comment, you can put this in the offering basket at the end of service. Okay, we're good with that, right. Next, our ushers are going to be handing out our offering envelopes. We love to give at Capital Christian Center. We love to give because God gave everything to us. So if you need one of those, slip your hand up in the air. They will pass them out to you. We do not take the offering until the end of service, so you can just hang on to that for a few minutes. Awesome. So we have some great stuff coming up in May. May is an exciting month. First of all, we have a big Memorial Day picnic that we're going to do for the community. It's going to be down at the waterfront under the large gazebo here in Port Orchard. It's a great way to get to know the community and to serve the community on such an amazing, honoring holiday. So we have a sign-up sheet in the back at Connect Central for people to help volunteer. So I'm encouraging you to please go get signed up on that list. Sign up before you end up on garbage duty. That's what I'm trying to tell you right now. Unless you love doing garbage duty, don't get me wrong, right? There's a job for everybody. So sign up for that. Next thing, we have women's breakfast in May. That'll be on the 12th. Come on, ladies. Always the second Saturday at 9:30 in the morning here. We have women's breakfast, we eat, we have fellowship, we have a word, we just have an amazing time. And I hear that the men have a men's breakfast apparently on the third Saturday. So actually, they'll be doing theirs on the following Saturday, the 19th. And I think that theirs starts at a different time. Is it at 9:30?
9 o'clock.
Oh, 9 o'clock, excuse me. They're here at 9 o'clock and probably done by 9:40, I'm sure. But eat, get out.
Hey!
I'm kidding. No, they're doing a men's 33, so they are actually growing in fellowship and in the Word also while they're here on Saturday. So don't miss out on that. You can sign up for that too. We always have Mondays have CR, Celebrate Recovery. That is at 7 p.m. here. You don't want to miss that. They have food, they have worship, they have all kinds of amazing things going on here, so you don't want to miss that either. Hurts, hang-ups, and habits is what they cover in CR, and a multitude of other things. On Tuesdays here, we have Foundation Study. It's at 7 p.m. We have a small group that's here every single Tuesday night. You are more than welcome to jump in at any time. We'd love to have you. Memorial Day this year is on a Monday as usual. It's a federal holiday, so we're planning on having our Memorial Day picnic that day. However, we're not 100% positive. So we will keep you up to date on when it's going to be, which day. So just sign up for help and we'll figure out that later. So without any further ado, I would love you all to please give a warm welcome to our very own amazing Pastor David. He's going to bring an amazing word for you today.
Memorial Day, a day when we remember those who have given the ultimate sacrifice and given their lives so that we can have the freedoms we have. Different from Veterans Day, right?
Yes.
Memorial Day, people died so we could have our freedoms. And a lot of you have served in the military, so you know the possibilities that are there. And thank you for your service. So we've been talking about doors, right? The series that we're in is about doors. Doors let us into places, and doors help us get out of places, right? Have any of you been helping other people with doors this week? Yeah? Awesome. Awesome. It's nice to know that when we've gone in the wrong door and we experienced bad things because we went through that door, it's good to know that we can help some other folks not go in that door, right? We can at least give them a warning. They may or may not listen to you, but then it's on them, right? At least you gave them a warning. Have you ever opened a door and had somebody not want to go through it? I'm reminded of the time I was headed to the mall all by myself. Men don't usually go to the mall at all, but I had to go. I needed some new Levi's 501s. I knew which store had them. I knew what size I needed, and it's like a 10-minute thing. In, get it, out, you go, done. I don't check every store to see what kind of jeans they have, okay? I know where they are. But as I'm approaching the door, I see a lady coming from the other side, and we're going to get there about the same time. So, like my mama trained me, I reach out and I open the door for her. And she stomps her feet. What, you think I can't open that door for myself? I didn't know what to do. I'm like, panicked, right? I said, well, I'm sure you can, but my mom told me that this is what guys are supposed to do for ladies. Well, I don't need your help. Okay, and again, I don't know what to do. Do I stand there and wait for her? Do I just go in? Do I close the door and step? What do I do? So I just went in. I just went in, left her standing out there. And I'm thinking, I am so glad my mom cannot see me now. Right? Sometimes people do not want to go through the doors that we open for them. They're not ready. I've had this in sharing my faith too. Sometimes I've shared my faith and they're not ready. It's okay. I tried. I gave them the opportunity, right? So our theme verse for this series is John 10:10. Can you quote this with me? It may appear on the screen if you need some help. All right? I have come that they may have life and that they may have just a little bit of it. Oh, more abundantly. Isn't it nice that God wants to give us a more abundant life?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's... do you want a better life?
Oh, yeah.
We should always want to improve, right? To have a little better life. Well, in the last couple of weeks, Pastor Courtney was talking about marriage and opening doors to healthier marriages. A beautiful thing about these principles that we're talking about is that they apply to all relationships, not just marriages, right? It can apply to your workplace, to your neighbor, to that person that you run into that you try to avoid, like in the grocery store and you duck behind the shelf. It can apply to that person too. No, I'm just saying, it's a possibility. Could help. But our goal is to help you live a stronger, more abundant life that Jesus came to give to all of us. So today we're talking about turning conflict into a better relationship. There's an outline in your bulletin. If you haven't already pulled that out, go ahead and pull that out. If you need a pen, just wave your hand and we'll get you a pen. Everybody's got something to write with? We're good to go. We're good to go. So this sermon, I think, comes at an appropriate time because given the two sermons that Courtney has given the last couple of weeks, there may have been some tensions that developed. I'm hoping that's not true. I'm hoping that what he taught didn't lead you to an argument with your spouse or your friend. If it did, I hope you fought fair. I hope you fought fair. The truth is that anytime you get two or more people together, there's likely to be conflict eventually. Right? I mean, it's part of life. We don't like it. We don't want it. But occasional conflicts are part of life. Now, if you have them every day, we should probably talk. An interesting thing is we don't actually need another person with us to have conflict. You know what I'm saying? We can have conflict with ourselves. Why did you even say that? How could you go there? What were you thinking? You ever have these conversations with yourself? Okay, so we don't really need another person to have conflict. We can do it all by ourselves. The interesting thing is that conflict can be like dynamite, right? It can blow up right in your face. It can blow you away. It can blow you apart from other people. But it doesn't have to. Conflict can blow away the barriers between you and other people if you use it correctly. It can crash through the obstructions that keep us from having better relationships. One of the most important skills that we can develop is the ability to resolve conflicts. Let me say that again. One of the most important skills you can develop is, whether that's in your marriage or any other relationship, is the ability to resolve conflicts. And actually, resolving conflicts can be the quickest way to deeper levels of connection and intimacy. You ever had that happen where you've been at odds with somebody and all of a sudden it gets cleaned up? And you feel so good because it's over. We're okay. Things are straightened out. We're ready to move forward. It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. I call it a skill because it can be learned. We can develop the ability to manage conflict. Usually that requires getting ourselves out of the way though, right? I don't know about you, but my default mode is to defend myself when I'm feeling accused. You guys feel that way too? Wait, let me explain. It's not like that. You got it wrong. Right? We try to be nice about it, but it can go several different ways. Let me ask you this. Have you ever become really good at something that you didn't practice?
No.
I haven't either. Now, I know that there are things that we're gifted in, but even in those areas, we can hone those skills, right? We can sharpen them, we can make them better. We can make them stronger, more well-defined. If I'm always avoiding conflict, how am I going to get better at resolving it? If I don't face the conflict, I'm not going to get better at resolving it. we'll get better at things that we avoid. In fact, in Matthew 5, when Jesus was preaching the Sermon on the Mount, he said this, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." Blessed are the peacemakers, one of the Beatitudes. In other words, children of the Heavenly Father will learn to make peace. Right? If we're going to be children of God, that's something He wants for us. He wants us to become peacemakers. So, when peace is restored in your home, isn't that pretty cool? Don't that feel good when you can relax and not have to worry about what's about to happen? When you can just be at peace. I don't know about you, but I grew up in a home that was pretty peaceful. But both my parents were teachers, and Dad taught junior high industrial arts, so crafts, woodworking, plastics, leather. Some days he'd come home kind of frustrated, and you could always kind of tell when it was a good day to give Dad some space. You could feel it. Nobody had to really say anything. It was just in kind of how he got out of the pickup and came marching towards the door. It's like, okay, I think I'll go downstairs for a little while, give Dad some time to unwind. Did you notice, though, that the word peace is something that you make? Peacemaker. When you make something, there's usually a process, right? Recently, while Debbie was in California visiting the grandkids, I decided to make a big batch of peanut butter cookies. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. I know you know Courtney's favorite, but now you know mine. It's kind of a toss-up between chocolate chip oatmeal and peanut butter, but anyway, not asking for anything. But when I made those peanut butter cookies, I was very careful about following the recipe. I had no idea how much sugar was involved either. But anyway, the thing you need to know is that our oven in our home tends to be a little hotter than what you set it at. So when I'm putting that first cookie sheet of cookies, I was watching it pretty close. I mean, it says 10 minutes, at I think it was 375. But along about 8 minutes, I'm going, wait a minute, I like these soft. I don't like them really hard. So I took them out. And I turned that dial down a little bit. Same thing on the next batch. Well, about the third batch, at 360 on the dial, at 8 minutes, we got it down. Now, some of you, that's no big deal, right? Because you're a good baker, you do this stuff all the time. And, you're so good at it because of the burnt offerings that you've created in the past. Right? Your practice makes perfect. Right? Right. So, yeah, it's a process. We learn. Even in baking cookies, we learn how to do it right, how to get better at it. Well, the Bible says that in the same way that we practice any other skill, we need to practice the skill of resolving conflict. The Bible says that God made peace with His enemies. Did you know that God is the ultimate peacemaker? He took His enemies, and through the conflict of the cross, He made it possible for everybody to be His friend. And God wants us to become like Him. How many of you know that in marriage, over and over and over again, we need to take our enemy and make them our best friend again, right? Isn't it weird when the person you're married to feels like the enemy? There's nobody even moving on that one. Okay, well, we'll move right along to the next thought. What happens in our culture, though, is they take their best friend and they make them an enemy, and then they leave it that way. That's why our divorce rate is higher than any of us would want it to be. So instead, we need to take our enemy and make them our best friend. So where does our conflict come from? Well, this next verse in James chapter 4 says, what is the source of conflict among you? What is the source of your disputes? Don't they come from your cravings that are at war in your own lives? You long for something, but you don't have, so you commit murder. What? Pause there, just for a moment. We all have those moments when we could just kill somebody, right? Hopefully they're brief. Hopefully they don't really lead to anything, right? But we all have those moments. How many of you moms have maybe said or maybe even thought that phrase, I brought you into this world and I can take you out, right? Yeah. I don't really think of moms in that way, but I know that there are moments when mothers, they can lose it. They can lose it. James goes on to say in that verse, you are jealous for something you can't get, so you struggle and you fight. You don't have because you don't ask. And you ask and don't have because you ask with evil intentions to waste it on your cravings. Desires. Evil desires, I think is what King James called it. So this verse says that you long for stuff that you don't have. We long for stuff that we don't have. And we all have unmet wants, needs, and desires. Some of the stuff we ask for isn't good for us. Right? We don't know that, or we don't want to know that. But some of the stuff we want is not good for us. But it's these wants, needs, and desires that cause conflict. Let me say that again. Conflict comes because of unmet wants, needs, and desires. Most of us are like little kids. We want what we want when we want it. Right? Now would be good. Right? Now would be good. But when I have an expectation, and someone, and they don't meet my expectation, I can get frustrated with them. Now, I'm sure very few of you do that, but you do it. Okay, you don't want to admit it, but you do it. So when I create an expectation, I want you to do something, and I expect you to do it. When the frustration grows, we can get a little testy about that, can't we? We can become demanding, and our frustration can grow into a major offense. We can hurt somebody. Some people take it to the extreme, and murder happens. It's a pretty big extreme, right? But it happens. It happens way too often. So here's the thing. Just because I have an unmet expectation, a want, need, or desire, doesn't mean that it's legitimate. Doesn't mean that I have a right to expect it. That's true in any relationship. It's true at your workplace. It's true in a classroom. It's true on a sports team. It's true here in church. It's especially true in marriage. Some people come to church and they expect the preacher to wear a suit. I didn't commit to that, right? You guys have been really nice about that. You haven't demanded that I wear a suit. Just so you know, if I'm wearing a suit, somebody died or there's a wedding, right? So you really don't want to see me in a suit, okay? My wife likes to see me in a suit, but it's choky. It's choky. But if I told you that I would wear a suit every time I preached, then it would be reasonable for you to have that expectation, right? Okay. So don't get that expectation. Some of you have expectations about music. Some people think that hymns should be the form of music because they're very spiritual. I grew up on hymns. I know most of them by heart, all 4 verses, sometimes 5. They're still in there in the database. But you know something? They were originally bar tunes, tavern tunes. The music got taken and new words put to it, which is good because everybody knew the tune, right? How about rap music? Should we have rap music for worship? That's not going to happen. I just want you to know. That's not going to happen. And even Christian rap kind of gets under my skin. Anyway, when we create expectations that other people have not agreed to, we're setting ourselves up for conflict. Thing is, all of us have expectations of other people. Some of them are reasonable. I expect people to stay in their lane, especially if they're right next to me. I expect them to stay on their side of the yellow line if we're coming towards each other. There's reasonable expectations that allow culture to work, right? But when we have expectations of others that aren't agreed to, we set ourselves up. So what this verse is really saying is that you don't have because you don't ask. In other words, there are legitimate needs that we can ask for, which implies that there are other needs that we shouldn't ask for, right? There are needs that we should not ask for because we'll just waste our time on them. We'll waste it on pleasing ourselves. So I'm saying there's legitimate needs and there are illegitimate needs. In a husband and wife relationship, there are legitimate needs. When my wife asks me to meet her legitimate needs, I should be willing to meet those needs because I am her covenant partner. In fact, there are some needs that I'm the only one that should meet. And because I love her and because I want her needs to be met, I want to serve her in that relationship. So I want to meet her needs. As a husband, I have needs in the relationship. And when I ask for those needs to be met, my wife should be willing to meet my legitimate needs. Legitimate needs. Meaning they've been agreed on, and they've been talked about, and it's something both people are going, yeah, that's good. But when two people in a relationship want to meet legitimate needs for their partner, you have what we call a vitalized relationship. It's smooth sailing. It's good times. When people don't meet expectations, it's very frustrating. But when they do meet expectations, the relationship is highly vitalized. It's kind of like an abundant life. You know, when things are going well and you're happy with one another. The reason you have relational breakthroughs is because you come to agreement on what those needs are and you work to meet one another's legitimate needs. People should not ask you to meet illegitimate needs. And when they do, you have a right to say no. Right? No, I'm sorry, I can't do that. That's a good answer. One we're hesitant to give, but it's a good answer. Your neighbor should not ask you to meet needs that you have not agreed on. You see that commercial where they want somebody to find them a painter? Could you get 3 references for each one? Just give me 4. And they're like, a really good neighbor, and they agreed to that. So let me throw something else in here. We all have expectations that we don't know about. When Debbie and I got married, Debbie had this expectation that I would know what she wanted. If I really loved her, I would know what she wanted. And there were times when she would get upset because I didn't do something. And I'm like, well, I don't remember you talking to me about this. I don't remember you asking me about this. Well, if you really love me, you'd know. But I don't read minds. I mean, sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I would anticipate and I'd do something that she wanted me to do and she'd be like, oh, good, he gets it. It was an accident. But now, guess what? I've made it an expectation. He's going to know ahead of time. I don't have to say anything. He's going to get it right. Yeah. I had some expectations of her, too, that we hadn't agreed on. But let me just tell you this. I have learned that vacuuming is not that hard. I have also learned that the best way to get my hands clean is to do dishes. When I do dishes, life is good. Life is good, and Debbie is happy. I hope she's not listening out there somewhere. So to summarize, the problem is that we expect life to be problem-free, right? Bad, but we expect it. Things to go smoothly, things to go like we planned. When the normal issues of life happen, we don't want to handle the conflict because, you know, in the past maybe it blew up in our faces and we're like, I don't want to go there, so I'm going to just kind of let that go and move on and not really deal with it. And of course, when we avoid things, they automatically get better. No, that's not how it works. So if we're going to handle explosives, you would want to be able to handle them very well, right? Okay, so if conflict is potentially explosive, then we should learn to handle it well. So I want to talk about 3 phases of conflict. I'll just mention 3 briefly, and then we'll take the first one, and then next week we'll take the other 2. But the 3 phases of conflict, I'm just going to give them to you quickly, then we'll talk about each one. Recognition is when we realize we have a problem. Reaction is, it's worse than I thought. And resolution is, what are we going to do about it together? So the first phase is the recognition phase of conflict. Recognition. It's like, Houston, we have a problem. You know, when that came over the airwaves back in the day, that was not good. Something's not quite right. We know something's off. We know it's not working out. And most of us have the ability to kind of sense when things are not lining up. We may not be able to put our finger on it yet, right? But something's off. Something is not working out. Little things are bugging us. Second phase is the reactionary phase of conflict. It's like Houston, it's worse than we thought. It's worse than we thought. This is when things can get loud and maybe a little bit scary. Tension goes high and communication starts to go low. You're starting to think, something's going bad. And sometimes in this stage it goes to, we have a problem and it's you. Right? What are you going to do about it? You have a problem. So we get stuck in that blaming stage, and this is where we can start blowing up and going nuclear, which keeps us from the third phase, which is the resolution phase. So if your problem-solving strategy is to blame the other person, that's a problem. That's a problem. And it's not going to get better until the other person fixes everything, right? So if I blame the other person, I've just lost all my power. Because if it's their fault, I'm waiting for them to fix it. And I don't have a role. So to blame is to be lame. To blame is to be lame. Right? So the third phase, the resolution phase, we are working on what we are going to do about this together. We create a partnership. We create a teamwork. And we're going after changing the problem together. So today we're going to talk about the recognition phase. Next week we'll talk about the other two. There's one thing you have to promise me though. If we're going to talk about problems today, and we're going to get to resolution next week, there can be no divorces this week, okay? Because I don't want to raise a problem and then not give you the solution until next week. So you got to make a commitment. No filing this week, right? We don't want to create any more trouble than we already have. But before we talk about the recognition phase, there are three things that are always true about conflict that you need to keep in mind. You can write these down because they're not like bullet points on your paper there. But you got room over there in the margin for these three things. First, in every conflict, you always have an opportunity to honor God. You always have an opportunity to honor God. Regardless of the situation, you can make a choice. You can ask God, how should I see this? How do you want me to respond to this? God, what do you want me to do? Please give me your wisdom. And if we get into that God-honoring process, it will change how we handle the situation, right? If I'm thinking about what God wants instead of what Dave Green wants, it's going to be a different outcome, right? And so we need to get into that God-honoring process. We need to learn to do it His way. So no matter what is going on, we have the choice and we can choose to honor God. Second, conflict is always an opportunity for you to grow. You know, the Bible talks about us going after the beam in our eye before we go after the speck in our brother's eye, right? So that implies that I need to look at me first. And so I can ask, where can I grow in this? How can I handle this? Maybe they didn't say it very nicely, but we can still choose to look for the truth in the blast that they sent our way. And we can see if there's some truth in it. And maybe you've got some people that are close friends. I've got 3 guys that know everything about me, good, bad, and ugly. And when someone, nails me with something, I will contact my buddies and I'll say, so this was said about me, give me some feedback. And sometimes they're like, nah, I don't even listen to them. And sometimes they're like, well, I've seen that in certain situations, so you might want to give it some thought. But I want their opinion because they know me. When a complete stranger tells you who you are, you may not want to listen to that, right? They may have something to say, but it may not be real or true or important. So conflict is always an opportunity to grow. Third, every conflict provides an opportunity to serve. What do you need from me? What do you really want? How can I make this better? those responses, I've learned, shut down a person's frustration. Because they're trying to nail you, and you're going, oh, well, how can I make that right? That's not the response that they're usually expecting to receive. So, you can be a good peacemaker. You can learn the skill of being a good peacemaker. So, 3 steps to walk through the first phase of conflict, the recognition phase. Number 1, don't back off. Don't back off. This is avoidance. Look at what this verse says. An open rebuke is better than love carefully concealed. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. A rebuke is better than love carefully concealed. So, when you are avoiding, you are not being truthful. You're hiding something. I would rather my wife tell me that we have a problem than to have her wait 20 years and say all of a sudden, we're done. Right? By the way, that happens to guys a lot. I don't know what's wrong with us, but we don't see those clues sometimes. This other verse in Proverbs 28, honest correction is appreciated more than flattery. So the Bible says that open rebuke is better than concealing things, and honest correction is better than flattering words. So when you have a serious problem in your relationship, avoidance is doomed to fail. I'm not talking about little stuff. Little stuff tends to go away. It's like, we get over it. But big stuff, stuff we can't stop thinking about, that's usually a clue. Those are the things that we need to face. Those are the things that we need to address. Denial is a problem. So burying conflict is a problem because the problem is not dead. If you're still thinking about it, it's still a problem, right? We sweep things under the rug. Have you ever lifted the rug and really looked under there? It gets crowded after a while. It's not a good thing. Sometimes when I'm doing counseling, it's easy to identify topics that are unresolved, right? Because they don't want to talk about it. And what happens to a lot of relationships, in fact, when I meet couples that don't really talk that much, I wonder if it's because they've had so many unresolved issues that they're like, okay, well, we're not going to talk about that. It goes on the pile of things we don't talk about. And over the course of time, there's so many things on that pile, there's not much left. And not only that, it's now a mountain, and there's an avalanche that's about to happen that can bury them. So avoidance does not work. So why do we avoid if it doesn't work? Basically 2 reasons. First, we're afraid of our partner's reaction. We're afraid of our partner's reaction. Usually it's an emotional reaction. It could be that they're angry and they blow up, or it can be that they're very sad and they're crying. And they're beating up on themselves. I'm such a terrible person. Which really doesn't help either, does it? So we're afraid of our partner's reaction. And second, we don't believe it will do any good to bring it up because it hasn't helped in the past. So why go there if it's only going to create bad feelings? Never mind that we already have the bad feelings. So we avoid for those 2 reasons. So these fears keep us from addressing the problem. Withdrawal is practicing emotional divorce. And that always precedes legal divorce. People don't divorce when they're happy with each other, when they feel safe with each other, when they feel loved by each other. But when they're not feeling safe and they start backing away emotionally, that leads to a more permanent solution. That leads to the legal divorce. So, that's avoiding. Number 2, don't back down. Don't back down. That's appeasement. Whenever you have a legitimate issue, a very legitimate issue, don't back off. Notice I said a legitimate need, legitimate issue. Don't try to convince yourself that something that's important is not as important. When we appease with someone, we're saying, you know, what you want and need and desire is important. What I want and need and desire is really not that good, not that big, not that important. And every time we do that, we give a little piece of ourselves away, right? We shut down another piece of ourselves. And what happens over time? The there's nothing left to give. And when there's no giving in a relationship, the relationship comes to an end. It's amazing to me that we can think that everything's good when we're not talking about a lot of things. But we somehow are able to convince ourselves. And typically, one person in the relationship is a skunk and one person in the relationship is a turtle. Right? What does a skunk do when they get cornered? Spray. Spray, spray, spray. It's bad. It's really bad. I had one of my dogs when I was a kid, one of my dogs got sprayed. Whew, baby. And then when it would rain, we lived here in Washington, so for weeks, every time it rained, dog smelled like a skunk again. So, that's that spraying, that anger response, right? What does the turtle do? Hides. Turtle takes all their soft, vulnerable spots and pulls them inside of a hard shell. And then they kind of peek out. Is it safe? Has he cooled off? You okay now? Is it safe to come out? And they stay in there till they know it's safe. Till they can come out and move about and keep on their way. So here's the problem. As Christians, we somehow think that appeasement is spiritual. And yes, the Bible does say that we're to serve one another, and yes, the Bible does say that we're to consider other person's interests as more important than our own. That's that typo I thought I found in the Bible. But it's actually in there. It actually says that. But it does not say to deny your legitimate needs. Where do we get our legitimate needs? Who put those in us? Yeah, God. We have certain needs that every human has. We talked 2 weeks ago about 5A treatment. Remember that? Affection, attention, appreciation, affirmation. Remember these? We all need to be accepted. We all want to be accepted. We need one another. And when we're avoiding one another, that should be a pretty big clue. So, how am I going to meet someone's needs if they don't tell me what that need is? How is someone else going to meet my needs if I never tell them what I would like, what I want, what I desire? You can always make a request, but you have not because you ask not. So look at this next verse. Watch yourselves. If another believer sins, rebuke that person. Wow. What's a rebuke? What's a rebuke? It's correction. A rebuke doesn't have to be an angry, in-your-face, right? It can be a simple correction. It can be gentle. It's when you tell someone that they've got it wrong. You correct them. You correct them. Now, how we correct is the key part, right? You can correct in a way that is receivable, and you can correct in a way that might get you hit, right? There's a really great book out that talks about care fronting. Instead of confronting, it's care fronting. In other words, be gentle. Be gentle. The last thing any of us want is to have someone we care about tell us, for the last 20 years you missed the mark with me. Well, why didn't you tell me sooner? Well, I was afraid and nervous and I didn't want to create trouble, so I didn't bring it up. Well, how was I supposed to make a correction? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. We often decide what the other person wants without even asking for their input. And the problem is, when I don't tell someone what I want, they're put in a position where they have to guess. What are the odds that I'm going to get what I want if they're just guessing? Not so good. So if I want to improve the odds, I need to give them some hints, some subtle clues, right? Wrong. Guys, how do we do with subtle clues? Where did that go? It's gone. I didn't get it. Quiet in the front row. So it's easy to find out if something's bugging somebody, right? I mean, if we're watching nonverbals at all, we're going to get some clues, right? We usually know when someone's upset. When my wife gets quiet, I start asking myself questions. Because normally she's a pretty happy person, pretty friendly, pretty good mood. So when she gets quiet, it's like I start going through my list. And then I have to go to her and I say, hey, is everything okay? Nothing's wrong. Okay. Nothing's wrong in that tone of voice means she's not ready to talk about it yet. It took me 20 years to figure that part out. But if I come back and I say, seriously, I can tell something, is there something I was supposed to do I didn't do? Is there something you're needing or wanting that I'm not doing? Just tell me, for Pete's sake. Get me out of jail here. Right? All right. I won't pick on my wife anymore. So in our relationships, God expects us to clean it up. And there are a couple pitfalls that we need to watch when it comes to appeasement. First of all, you don't want to have a pity party. You know, poor me, I'm just going to take one for the team. I guess this is what God wants me to do. He's trying to teach me something. Right? Pity party. It doesn't really do a lot of good. What that really is, it's a passive way of expressing our anger. We're not happy, but we're being a martyr. The anger's not coming out yet. It's still building. It's still coming in. It will come out. But if we think it's spiritual, we got a wrong definition. We missed the mark. So instead of appeasement, the Bible says, instead, we will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ. I like the translation that says, growing up into Christ. Ephesians 4:15. Instead, we will speak the truth in love. So, speak what? Truth. Speak it how? Pretty powerful little phrase, right? Speaking the truth in love. You can speak truth in ways that are just like throwing gasoline on the fire, and we've all done that. So don't think you don't know. Don't think you haven't experienced that. Truth. Sometimes we just need to bite our tongue, because what we're about to say is not going to help. Not going to help, and it gives you more to have to clean up. Which brings me back to that subtle clue thing. You got to be direct. You got to speak the truth. Not half the truth or a quarter of the truth or a teeny bit of the truth. You got to speak the truth. We're not that smart, ladies. You got to tell us, okay? Got to tell us. Most guys don't get those subtle hints. So don't have a pity party. The other thing is that appeasement can cause us to doubt. Was I really supposed to marry him? Is she the right person for me? Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe this isn't the person that God wanted me to be with. You know, maybe I should get a different job. I really like this job, but you know, that person's on my case. You know, we make decisions without working things through, and it can cost us. Care enough about your partner, your boss, your neighbor to confront them. Care enough to address the problems that come up. So, you can say something like, you know what, I care too much about our relationship to avoid this issue that I'm feeling. Can we talk about this? You know, seek permission. Don't back them into a corner and tell them you got to talk to them about something. Get permission. Ask politely. Be nice. Speak truth in love. But we have to communicate. We may have to negotiate. Or we may have to compromise. But once you start communicating, you can find a negotiating position. And once you start negotiating, things start to get better. You give, they give, little improvement, and pretty soon you got a breakthrough. But you got to start. You got to start the communication. Now, I need to say a little something about abuse. Abuse is a different category. All right? Abuse should never be accepted. You know, we have two little numbers, 911, which, you know, as a church, we are against domestic violence. It's never the right solution. Never. So, we have to speak up about those things. We have to get help. We have to take action. It's never okay. When a circumstance needs to be escaped, we have to escape. Okay? Now, there are some times when preservation of life should take precedence, right? We all believe this? We're all on the same page? Okay, good. So be warned. Appeasement leads to anger. Anger leads to skunks and turtles. So if we never confront the wrong in our lives, we are not being loving. If we really want to love someone, we need to work through the things that stand in our way. So number 1 is don't back off. That's avoidance. Number 2 is don't back down. That's appeasement. Number 3 is don't back over them. Don't run over them in your effort to address the issue. So I'm saying don't avoid, but I'm also saying don't be reactionary and overbearing. We are not to appease, but we are also not to become aggressive. You know, our friends, our spouse deserves our respect. Do you know that? Do you want respect? Yeah, we all want respect. So it's something that we should give to others. Even when there's a problem, we can be respectful. It's getting a little weird in our culture, isn't it? If you don't like something, you're just supposed to trash them. It's especially bad on the internet. I go on some of these blogs and I'm like, you coward. You know, they're using the blog because they don't want to say anything to somebody in person. So they go on there and blab under, some weird name that you can't identify. But we don't want to do that. Whenever you are angry and aggressive, you have to give yourself a timeout. Like I said, sometimes we need to bite our tongue. So I get that we may be upset. And I have to ask, is shaming and belittling and criticizing and condemning the only response we can come up with? If it is, then it's not time to talk, right? So remember, conflict may be painful. Actually, let's look at Proverbs 17. Whoever loves to argue loves to sin. Whoever brags a lot is asking for trouble. So if you're good at arguing, if you're good at putting people in their place, this might be a verse for you. If you love to argue, that's a sin. So conflict may be painful, but it doesn't have to be hurtful. I think I'd like to change that. Conflict will be painful, but it doesn't have to be hurtful. It's always a little uncomfortable anyway, right? When we know that someone is struggling with where we are and what we want. So anything worth experiencing is going to cost us something, right? You know this. Anything worth having is going to cost us something. Week before last, my neighbor and I were talking about going skiing. And he said, yeah, let's do it next week. So I went online and checked at Crystal Mountain and found out that they were closing that Sunday. So I went back over to Art and I said, Art, we just got this week. It's done on Sunday and I can't go on Sunday. He says, well, we got today and tomorrow. Which do you want? Or we got tomorrow and Friday. What do you want? And I said, Thursday's better for me. So the next day we went skiing. Now, it had been 3 years. And even then it was California mountains, okay? They're not as big as ours. Along about noon, Dave's legs were wearing out. And so I took a lunch break, and I did about 5 runs after that. And I'm not talking little runs. I was still going to the top of the mountain. But the bumps were getting a little harder to negotiate. And I was not, it was time to get off the mountain. Of course, when I finally admitted this myself, I was at the very top. And so it was a long ride down with plenty of pauses, okay? But that pain was because I love being on the snow. I love skiing. I don't like crashing. And when my legs don't work right, that's likely to happen. Surgery is another example. Is surgery fun? Is it intended to make you suffer? No, it's intended to solve a problem, right? But they got really sharp knives. They're going to cut you. That is going to cause pain. So, conflict may be painful, but it's not meant to be hurtful. It doesn't need to be hurtful. So quickly, let me give you 3 things that will help you navigate safe arguments. And we'll be out of here by 1 o'clock. So make sure it's the right time. Okay, make sure it's the right time. The right word spoken at the right time is as beautiful as gold apples in a silver bowl. Columbia University did a study and they found out that 90% of arguments start at the dinner table. Wrong time. So we need to go with the right time. And so you're hurting emotionally, you haven't been able to talk to each other, all of a sudden you're sitting at a table together. Let's fix this. No, let's not. 90% of the arguments start at the dinner table. Or maybe you're headed out the door, and just before you go out the door you say, you know, we have a problem we need to talk about, so I'd like us to talk about that. It's like pulling the pin on the grenade, throwing it in the room, closing the door, and getting in the car and going to work. Guess what's waiting for you when you get home? Yeah. They somehow got the pin back in there, and they're holding it, and they're waiting for you. And it's not going to be pretty. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your wrath, nor give place to the devil. Satan loves to mess up relationships because he knows how they strengthen us. So he'd like to eliminate that source of strength. You can talk about budgets. It doesn't have to be at the dinner table. You know, I've learned that it's really smart to say, hey, is this a good time for us to talk? If the answer is no, should I talk about it? No. So make sure it's the right time. Make sure you use the right tone. A soft answer turns away wrath. A soft answer turns away wrath. But a harsh word stirs up anger. Is this true? It's got to be. It's in the Bible. But it's also true in my life. I can testify to the truthfulness of this. So how you say what you say is more important than the words you say. How you say what you say is more important than the words you say. Ladies, if you buy a new dress, and your husband comes home and you want to model that new dress for him, and you say, how do you like my dress? And he goes, oh, well, I like your dress. Is that going to be okay? But if he says, oh, I like your dress, that'd be good? Same words, right? So tone of voice. Studies show that tone of voice is 38% of the message that we give. Body language is 55, which means 7% is our words. And where do we spend all of our time? Spelling, correct pronunciation, correct sentence structure, correct punctuation, right? We need to learn more about how we say what we say. Harsh words, painful words, sarcastic words, slamming words. Those are not the kind of words that are going to make it good. A common response to harsh words is what? Anger.
Harsh words.
A soft answer. A soft answer. Not a harsh answer. And you've all heard, basic communication classes talk about I statements, right? Why? Why? Because they give information. I want, I need, I feel, I think. Right? What do you statements do? You are, you always, you never, you consistently, right? You statements place blame, and when I get blamed, I want to defend myself. So, right time, right tone, and right place. This verse, if your fellow believer sins against you, go and tell him. Where? In private. Sometimes we treat our spouse like we're on the Jerry Springer show. Right? It's been a long time since I watched Jerry Springer because it's so ridiculous, but it's just brutal. It's just brutal. It goes on to say, do it in private. Show him what he did wrong. If he listens, you have helped that person to be your brother or sister again. So, let's talk about the right time, the right tone, and the right place. Conflict doesn't have to be bad. In my last church, the majority of my job was addressing conflict within the body, or between a member of the church and those outside the body. I did the church discipline at Saddleback Church for about 8 years. And we had 30,000 people, so I had a lot of work to do. But I learned really quickly that when we're going through a difficult time, it's a great time to grow closer to God. And I didn't look at it as I'm the vice principal, it's my job to hand out the hacks. They did that when I was in junior high. But I looked at it as they're going through a tough time, and this is when they're most likely to grow closer to God. Conflict can be helpful to us. Join me in prayer. God, I'm praying for you to give spouses and friends and co-workers and fellow believers the ability to speak lovingly to one another while we speak truth. The truth that needs to be said. The truth that sets us free, that cleans up our conflicts. And I pray for an abundance of your grace and kindness and your gentleness to be in us. I pray that you give us your wisdom when it comes to our timing and our tone and our place. I pray that you will allow your love to grow in us to the point where you are in the middle of our relationships, helping us to make peace with one another and with those that we have contact with. Thank you for this in Jesus' name. Amen. So as we sing this last song, our ushers are going to collect the offering, and be sure to put your next step card in there too.
You gave your life to give me mine. You said that I am free. How can it be? How can it be?
Promise, right? No divorces this week. And next week we'll give you the keys to resolution. All right? Now, I know you guys know what makes things better and what makes things worse, right? Don't do any of the stuff that makes it worse this week, okay? Bite your tongue. Ask God for the wisdom you need. Live a life that you can smile about, and your spouse, neighbor, friend, co-worker smiles back. Right on? Have an awesome week, and I'm hoping for more of that last week's sunshine. I kind of like that, so let's look for some of that. God bless.